5 men watched a basketball game and started a normal drive home. But somewhere on a frozen mountain road, logic completely disappeared. Their car was found working, the doors were unlocked, the fuel was still there, and yet all 5 of them walked away into deep snow without food, without winter clothes, and without any clear reason. What they did next makes no sense even today because miles away, one of them slowly starved to death inside a cabin full of food, while another was never found at all. And the most disturbing question is not how they died, but what forced them to leave safety and walk willingly into the darkness. On the night of February 24, 1978, 5 men from Yuba City, California set out on what was supposed to be a simple, joyful trip, a short drive to Chico State University to watch a college basketball game, something they had done before and planned to do again. But this night would quietly transform into one of the most chilling unsolved mysteries in American history, later earning the haunting title, the Dyatlov Pass of America. The men were Gary Mathias, Jack Madruga, Bill Sterling, Ted Weiher, and Jack Hewitt, all of them friends, all of them living modest lives, and all of them dealing with mild intellectual disabilities that made routine and familiarity extremely important to them. They were known for being careful, predictable, and deeply attached to their daily structure, which makes what happened next so difficult to understand. After the game ended, instead of returning home along the familiar highway, something caused them to turn east, away from the city, away from safety and toward the dark, frozen wilderness of the Plumas National Forest. Hours passed and the men never came home. Their families assumed something minor had gone wrong. Maybe a breakdown. Maybe they stayed overnight with a friend. But by the next morning, panic began to spread. Especially because none of the men had a reason to abandon their responsibilities or disappear voluntarily. 3 days later, on February 28th, a forest ranger discovered Jack Madruga's car abandoned high in the mountains near a place called Rogers Cow Camp. The location alone raised immediate red flags because the road leading there was remote, unplowed, and dangerous, especially for a standard passenger car. Yet the vehicle showed no signs of damage, no skid marks, no crash, and no attempt to use chains even though chains were found neatly placed in the trunk. The gas tank was nearly empty, the doors were unlocked, and the keys were missing, as if the men had simply stepped out and walked away into the snow. What shocked investigators even more was that the car could have been pushed free by 1 or 2 people, meaning they were not truly trapped, and yet for some unknown reason, all 5 men left the vehicle together and vanished into the freezing night. Temperatures had dropped well below freezing, snowbanks towered over 6 feet high, and none of the men were dressed for survival. Some were wearing light jackets, thin shoes, and street clothes. No winter gear, no food, no supplies. As search teams began combing the area, they found footprints leading away from the car. 5 distinct sets, moving in a single direction, calmly, without signs of panic or running, heading deeper into the forest instead of downhill toward warmth and help. And this is where logic begins to collapse, because every instinct for survival would have told them to stay with the car or return to the road. Yet they did the opposite. Weeks passed. Snowstorms buried evidence. Hope slowly faded, and then, in early June, as the snow melted, the forest finally began to give up its secrets. The first bodies were found. 2 of the men, Madruga and Sterling, were discovered 8 miles from the car, lying face down near a creek. Their deaths attributed to hypothermia. No signs of struggle, no injuries, just the quiet stillness of men who had frozen to death. But their location made no sense, because they had traveled an enormous distance in brutal conditions without proper clothing, and even more disturbing, the direction they traveled suggested they were moving with purpose. Not confusion. Nearby, the remains of a small fire were found, along with personal items, but no explanation as to why they were there or what they were trying to accomplish. Then, a short distance away, searchers found the body of Ted Weiher, wrapped in blankets, inside a Forest Service trailer stocked with food, heating equipment, and supplies that could have kept him alive for months. Yet he had starved to death, having lost nearly 100 pounds, his beard had grown long, his feet were severely frostbitten, and investigators believed he had survived for weeks. Inside that trailer, surrounded by everything he needed to live, except the will or ability to use it. And perhaps the most disturbing detail of all was that the trailer's heating system had been partially used. Cans of food had been opened, but in a strange, inefficient way, suggesting someone unfamiliar or afraid of the equipment, as if they were too frightened to fully settle in, or were waiting for something or someone. The final body, Gary Mathias, was never found. Not even a trace, no. Bones, no clothing, no evidence at all, he simply vanished, and to this day, his disappearance remains one of the most haunting aspects of the case, because Matthias was the strongest of the group, a former army soldier, and the only one capable of navigating the wilderness, yet he either abandoned his friends or was taken by something the others could not escape, leaving behind a mystery that refuses to die. As investigators pieced together the timeline of the Yuba County Five, every answer seemed to create two new questions. The footprints suggested cooperation, not chaos. The men walked in an organized manner, staying together, which means none of them were forced or dragged, and yet none of them made a single rational survival decision. When they reached the Forest Service trailer, it should have been a miracle, a warm shelter filled with food, fuel, and bedding, but instead it became a silent tomb. Ted Weiher's body told a story of prolonged suffering. He had lived long enough for his beard to grow significantly. His feet were so badly frostbitten that bones were visible, and yet he never left the trailer, never attempted to hike downhill, never fully activated the heater. The food inside the trailer could have fed all 5 men for an entire year, but only a few cans were opened, and even those were opened incorrectly, some punctured rather than properly opened with a can opener. That was available nearby. This suggests fear, confusion, or a mental block so powerful it overrode basic survival instincts. Nearby, searchers found the remains of Jack Hewitt, located between the trailer and the creek, suggesting he had tried to go back and forth, possibly carrying supplies or searching for the others. His shoes were missing, and his feet showed signs of severe frostbite, indicating he may have given his footwear to Weiher, an act of loyalty and sacrifice that adds a tragic layer to the story, but still, the central question remains unanswered. Why did they leave the car? Many theories have been proposed. Some believe they encountered another group on the mountain, possibly hostile locals or poachers. Others suggest they were frightened by something they couldn't understand, flashing lights, loud sounds, or even a military exercise. There were reports in the area that night of strange lights in the sky, glowing orbs seen by multiple witnesses across Northern California. Adding fuel to UFO theories, some believe the men saw something terrifying and fled in fear, choosing the unknown forest over a known road. But fear alone does not explain the calm footprints, nor does it explain why they passed multiple opportunities for safety. Another theory suggests Gary Matthias suffered a psychological episode. He had a history of schizophrenia but was reportedly stable and taking medication, yet if he experienced a break from reality, could he have convinced the others to follow him? Could his authority as the strongest and most confident member have led them into disaster? And if so, why did he disappear completely while the others perished? Some investigators speculate Matthias survived longer than the rest and left the area, perhaps still alive somewhere, though this theory grows weaker with each passing year. Another disturbing possibility is that the men encountered something in the forest that night that defies conventional explanation, something that instilled such fear that rational thought collapsed. Similar to the Dyatlov Pass incident in Russia, where experienced hikers fled their tent into deadly conditions for reasons never fully explained. Both cases share eerie parallels: inexplicable decisions, abandonment of shelter, and deaths caused not by violence but exposure, as if something invisible pushed them beyond logic. Even decades later, former investigators admit the case never sat right with them. There was no single mistake, no clear chain of events, just a series of decisions that collectively make no sense. The evidence refuses to align into a coherent narrative, leaving behind only fragments of tragedy, loyalty, fear, and silence, frozen in time like the snow that once buried their footsteps. More than 4 decades later, the story of the Yuba County Five continues to haunt investigators, families, and anyone who studies unexplained disappearances, because unlike many cold cases, this one is not defined by what is missing, but by what is present. The men were found, the evidence was documented, and yet the truth remains unreachable. The families were left with unbearable questions, especially the family of Gary Matthias, who never received a body to bury. No closure, only endless speculation. Some believe Matthias wandered into the forest and succumbed to the elements, his remains scattered by animals, while others believe his disappearance is the key to understanding everything else. If Matthias was alive after the others died, what did he see, what did he know, and why did he never come back? The Forest Service trailer remains one of the most baffling aspects of the case, a place of safety that somehow became a prison. Weiher's slow death by starvation while surrounded by food challenges everything we believe about human survival instincts. It suggests that fear, mental limitations, or psychological pressure can be more deadly than cold or hunger. The case also raises uncomfortable questions about how society supports vulnerable individuals. Had these men been better equipped, better guided, or better understood, could this tragedy have been avoided? The Dyatlov Pass comparison continues to draw attention because both cases share a sense of something unseen, influencing human behavior, whether it was fear, confusion, environmental factors, or something truly unknown. The Yuba County Five stand as a reminder that not all mysteries are violent or dramatic. Some are quiet, slow, and deeply unsettling, built on small decisions that spiral into irreversible outcomes. Even today, hikers report strange feelings in the area, a sense of being watched, an unnatural silence. Though these could be attributed to imagination, they add to the legend. The forest has reclaimed the land, but not the questions. Every year, new theories emerge, podcasts revisit the case, documentaries attempt to solve it, but none succeed, because the truth may be something deeply human and deeply uncomfortable, that under the right conditions, ordinary people can make extraordinary irrational choices, driven not by evil or madness, but by fear and trust, the trust these men had in each other, walking together into the darkness, believing they were doing the right thing. And that is perhaps the most haunting part of all. They did not die alone, they died together, step by step, into a mystery that refuses to let go. A mystery that still stands as America's Dyatlov Pass, whispering from the snow, asking a question no one has yet been able to answer. Why?